It has been obvious for quite some time now that Bryce Harper has not quite looked like himself this season. Well, we finally have some news on what specifically the Phillies superstar is dealing with and why I'm a little bit concerned for how long this could be lingering. I want to break down exactly what Bryce Harper had to say about the injuries that he's dealing with, what this means for the Phillies moving forward, and if there is any hope for these to clear up soon. Before I dive fully into the story of the day, I do want to remind you guys to make sure you continue to smash that subscribe button. That at this point in time, 84.2% of you guys tuning in the videos have not subscribed just yet. We're closing in on that 1,000 mark right here on Phillies Digest and about a month away from the playoffs overall. So want each and every one of you guys a part of this Phillies Digest journey along with me. So make sure you're smashing that subscribe button, supporting the channel there, and sticking along for us every step of the ride. Now, to get into the somber tune of today's video, I do want to discuss specifically what is going on with Bryce Harper, and shout out specifically to Todd Zalecki here, who did an awesome job breaking this article down. I'm going to go pretty in depth on what he wrote here, and his headline states that Harper, quote, grinding through elbow/wrist inflammation. Hopefully it won't be an issue in October. I think for anybody that has tuned in on the Phillies in the regular basis, it's been pretty clear that Bryce Harper has not looked like Bryce Harper. That this guy that is the face, the centerpiece, the most talented player on this roster simply has not been that for most of this season. Now, to dive into specifically the conversation that Todd had and a couple other members of the media here, I'm going to start by pulling up the beginning of the article here, in which he states that Bryce Harper said repeatedly on Friday that he will not make excuses, but he is banged up. He reluctantly acknowledged that much before Friday night's game against the Braves at Citizens Bank Park. Attentive Phillies fans have noticed Harper wearing a protective black sleeve on his right arm since Monday's game against Houston. They also might have noticed that Harper has not homered in 73 consecutive plate appearances dating back to August 9th, and I'll add that number has now increased to 77 after Friday's night's game, which I'm recording at this point. Is it a sore wrist, a sore elbow? Quote, all of it, Harper told MLB.com. The elbow, the wrist, is not anything crazy, but obviously it's there. He said that his wrist has bothered him since May. The elbow is more recent. Harper said that he doesn't recall a specific play or moment that irritated the wrist, only that it, quote, just generally got worse. I've been grinding through that, but with the postseason a little more than a month away, he said he is hopeful it will not be an issue in October. And to be perfectly honest, I think it's worse that there's not a specific play. When you think back to the track record of Bryce Harper at this point, this dude who's already got Tommy John within the past 3 seasons, this guy who was unable to play the field for an entire season where he was forced to that DH role, which really shook things up and forced Kyle Schwarber to play left field. We got Nick Castellanos and right. Kind of led us down this path where the Phillies really leaned into guys fully just smashing home runs and how this era of Phillies baseball got constructed. Bryce Harper was a key part of that and really got forced into the DH role in a way that was not meant to be. And it felt like shifting him to first base was going to save him to an extent, but we're not quite seeing the effects of that. Now, I don't want to leave everything out here, so the article continues on to write that, quote, I don't want to make excuses for what I do, Harper said. You know what I'm saying? I've just got to get through it. Hopefully it gets better rather than getting worse. The wrist finally getting to the point where I feel like it's turning a corner. My elbow is just like there. Harper had Tommy John following the 2022 World Series. He said this isn't that. It's not the ligament, he said. It's in that area, but it's not the ligament, and that's the good thing. But it's safe to say that the wrist and elbow have affected Harper's power. He is batting .345 with 4 doubles, 3 RBIs, and a .924 OBS in his last 8 games, which is encouraging. But he's batting .230 with 5 home runs and 15 RBIs with a .691 OPS since the All-Star break. He batted .301 with 21 homers, 61 RBIs, and a .982 OBS before the break. Quote, I don't want to make excuses for the way that I'm playing, Harper said about his lack of power. I just want to make sure that if I can play, then I'm good. If it continues to go the right way, then yeah, we're good on both ends. Sometimes you've got to play through crap, all good. So I do like, and this is one of the things that I think Bryce Harper has really grown fondly in the eyes of Phillies fans, is he is a grinder. He is a worker. He's a guy that wants to stick it through, play through pain, and have that quote-unquote dog mentality. That is why we like him here in Philadelphia, and he does wear his heart on his sleeve on a daily basis. And we see him the way that he is capable of, stretching out an extra base or sliding away that he probably shouldn't. That is the Bryce Harper that we know and love. Now, if I want to call a spade here, we haven't fully got that Bryce Harper for a good portion of this season. Whether it is little moments like not sprinting out a ball down the line in first base, whether it is dogging it a little bit around the base path, I'm not criticizing the dude because he is a guy that I think has a little bit of that sweat equity in my mind that I trust him as a baseball player. But the reality is, the version that we've got from Bryce Harper from pretty much start to finish this year is not a guy that is leading this team on the pathway to the World Series and is not the dude that has been this heroic superstar in the biggest stage and the biggest moments in past years. Now, to get into specifics of what I mean by that, to add a couple stats, that quote, whereas Harper entered July having launched 20 home runs on the year, he's since homered just 6 times. July served as the single worst full month of Harper's career as judged by OPS, and while he's rebounding to an extent in August, he's posted a 233, 311, and 411 slash line over his last 42 games. The Phillies are 20-22 in those contests. To add more specifics to that, to take a look at his past 50 plate appearances, over this time, he's had 4 doubles, 6 singles. He's struck out 12 times, and he's popped out the rest of them. He's hitting just 200 over the stretch of time, just 3 RBIs and OPS of 652. I will say I think the at-bats have looked better, that he did lace 2 doubles tonight, laced 1 down the line. That was a really good-looking swing. It doesn't feel like anything that there's super mechanically wrong with him. What it is there isn't the power behind it, and that's directly related to these injuries here. Now, while that's all good and dandy, that I'm glad that he's putting this out front and saying this, the reality is, what is the fix here? That we need this guy to be at his best if this Phillies team is going to go on another deep run. That these stats on the season, 26 home runs, 76 RBIs, 65 walks, and 450 at-bats. He's got 125 overall hits during that time. These are good numbers for your average NBA or for your average MLB player. These are not the numbers that you're hoping for when you're talking about Bryce Harper. And to directly compare him to a guy on this team, a guy like Nick Castellanos, who has been kind of the steady, consistent version that this Phillies team needs. 19 home runs, 73 RBIs, and I get, once again, both those stats being a little bit less than what we've got from Harper. He has been the guy that has stepped up in his biggest moments of lately. So shout out to Castellanos for picking up a little bit of the slack. But the bottom line is this Phillies team is built to play around Bryce Harper. That he is the face, he is the centerpiece, he is the talented guy that everything is supposed to work with, and he's the guy that you should want at the plate at the biggest moments. I know it's kind of unfair to hold him to this standard. That injuries are injuries. He's still fighting through it, and we have to respect that. But this doesn't feel like something to me that is going to just get better. While I appreciate him not acknowledging it is not the ligament, that still doesn't change the fact that he does not look capable of driving a ball out of the ballpark at this point in time. And there's even been a couple swings that it looks like he gets a hold of, and they just kind of die out there. That's a huge deal for this Phillies team and for Bryce Harper specifically. I'm going to take his word for it and be a little optimistic on the way out. Maybe this is something that continue to work through will get better. That he says the wrist is turning a corner. He feels like he's in a better spot. We still have a little bit over a month until that playoff push. Maybe when we get there, he's feeling better. But if this is the version of Bryce Harper that the Phillies have entering the playoffs, I really don't love how things are trending for this team. So let me know if you're as panicked as I am with Bryce Harper. I do think this is a concern both in the short and long term because, as I mentioned, with all the power numbers and how this team is constructed, they need him. And in the long term, this is now multiple ligament, elbow, and shoulder issues that he's dealt with. It's just not a great sign for a guy that, as much as we love him, as much as we know what he brings to his team, he's aging. He's past his prime. He's about to turn 32 years old, and there were already talks this offseason about him wanting another contract extension. I do hope ultimately that he ends up fine, that this is a little blip in the radar, and that he can continue on the pathway that we expect with this Phillies team. But this is not the type of news that I want jumping up on my timeline regarding the Phillies at this point. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Once again, make sure you're smashing that subscribe button. We're getting close to the 1,000 mark and want as many people a part of the Phillies Digest family as possible. So smash that subscribe button, drop a like on this video, any comments you have below, and I'll be talking with you next time right here on Phillies Digest. Peace.